Hello, how are you? Also, Happy New Year's, everyone who is watching right now. But this video is gonna help anyone who is interested in making their own homemade TCG, or maybe you already have one. Maybe you're just starting it, or maybe you just want to find tips to help you out, or whatever. Because this video, I'm basically gonna be showing you how you can get started on making a TCG, and this is like just some of this stuff is kind of like my opinion that helped me and everything, so you may not agree with everything, but as long as it's like helps you in some way, that's great. I'm also going to be using my TCG match powers as a reference for a lot of this because I did learn a lot about like what's best for making a TCG after making mine and stuff. So with that being said, let's get started. So what you see in front of you right now is 3 different official TCGs. And basically, what this means is that you gotta make your TCG have a cool concept and make it unique. Because this is Cardfight Vanguard, and Cardfight Vanguard is not completely different. There are similarities, and that's okay to have similarities to other TCGs, but this is very different from Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, and that's what makes Cardfight Vanguard. That's what makes this TCG unique and cool. You gotta make your TCG different from others. It can have similarities, like, all these TCGs, they all have decks and everything, they all have, like, health points, that's, like, basic stuff. But they all have something different from each other that makes the game stand out, if you know what I'm saying. So you gotta have, like, a really cool concept for your game that makes it stand out above the rest and makes people want to play your game instead of just, playing, like, a basic TCG and stuff. Because there is no basic TCG, because they all have something unique, you know what I'm saying? By the way, this card. Now, this concept that you're going to think of is what your TCG is mainly going to be about. Because the concept and the unique part of the TCG, there actually could be multiple if you want. That's your key part of your game. So you want to build it around there. And then this is where you start with the rules, and you want to make the rules first before you start making the cards and everything. Now, I actually do have something to show you, which I'm going to do. There's going to be a voiceover. Basically, it's like a note thing. You'll understand once you see it. It's like a note thing that basically I wrote all my ideas down for this new TCG that I was going to make, but I'm kind of deciding just to keep my old TCG. But before we actually get into the cards and everything, you gotta make the rules first. And let me show you what that thing looks like now. Okay, so what you see in front of you, I did a recent recording, and what you see in front of you is basically my notes thing on my iPad, my brainstorming little document, whatever the heck, of a new TCG called Spellbook I was thinking of making. And basically, what this is just me just brainstorming, writing down all my ideas for this TCG. You can see up here, my strategy for making it was do all stats first on computer, then the arts and card names. I'm going to be going over different ways you can actually make a TCG. And then write down right there, more of a basic TCG, because my TCG match powers, it's basically going to be much more different than that. That's basically what I meant. But, yeah, I was just brainstorming, getting ideas, and I suggest that you do something like this if you want to get into your TCG. And if you're just going to do this as a hobby, I do it as a hobby, you can still do this and stuff, but you kind of have to get into it if you want to make a good game, you know what I'm saying? You can't just, like, go into it not trying, because then the game is not going to come out that good, unless you got lucky. But, yeah, so there's, just like my thinking. That was just like my brainstorming for this TCG, and I suggest doing something like this, like putting down like the rules and everything. I suggest that a lot. It's very helpful. Once your rules of your game seem to be pretty good, and you think you're done with it, well, you're not, because you're probably going to be making changes once you actually play the game. Then I suggest you get just little pieces of paper of, like, just literally anything. It doesn't even need to be, like, in a card shape. It doesn't need to be professional at all. Just make prototype cards with the stats and everything of some creatures or spells or equipments, whatever your game has, and make at least 2 decks, or like half of some decks or whatever, and just test the game. Make sure everything works out fine. because you're probably going to be making some changes. If you're making changes, I mean, that's no problem at all. That's completely normal. And yeah, test the game, get some prototypes done, and then let's say you do make some changes, and then the game's finished. Then you test it and you like it and it's good. Then that's also fine. But if you do make some changes or you're testing it and you're kind of stumped, look at other games. Like look at look at like other games, like official games, or maybe like other people's games. Like I know some people commented that I inspired them or whatever. Just look at others' games, get ideas. You know what I'm saying? But don't take anyone's ideas. Like don't steal things from other things. Like you can have like things in your game that are similar to others, but don't make it too similar. You know what I'm saying? Because then that doesn't make your game unique. And actually, in fact, that takes the unique concept of that game away from it, and it doesn't help anyone. So don't like completely take anything away from people. Just get ideas and maybe change them around, or maybe it'll just give you an idea and you'll completely have something different and new and that you really like. So that's something I suggest, because I actually did that myself. I actually did look off other games, especially official TCGs, to help me in making match powers. So let's say your rules of the game are done, and now you can actually start making the cards. Well, I mean, if your game has a specific theme, obviously make the cards to that theme. But for like my TCG, there is no theme, it's just like random things. Then you want to have, I call it a template, some people call it a format, and it's basically where all the stats and all the things you need to know about the card is gonna go. And right here, this is one of my cards. This is Tyrant. As you can see, the name of the creature is right up here. You have the rarity, and you have the other stats that are for the rules of the game, and then you have the picture of the card. So you basically want to make a good, organized format. And another one, which a lot of you probably know of, is Pokemon, with the name up here, and like the health, some evolution if the card's got an evolution, its attacks. So you want to have a good, organized, and you got to make it appealing. You want to see it and be like, that's cool, and I like that. You also want to make it simple. Now, some of them, it can be a little off to the complicated side, like this one right here, which you can hardly see because of how shiny it is. But it gets kind of complicated down here on this Card Fight Vanguard card. But it's still pretty simple. Nothing that's too crazy, not like stats and numbers all over the place, because then it gets overwhelming and no one likes that. So keep it simple, but make it also different from others. You don't want to make yours like way too similar to another game. And this right here is like a spell card in my game called Player Abilities, and you can see that's much different than a creature card. So have like a really good format or template, whatever you want to call it. Make it look nice, and then once you get that done, then you can do certain ways of how you can make your cards, which is the main part of the game, and I'll show you different ways you can do that. Now I'm going to be showing you 3 different methods of making cards for your game that you can do, and they kind of depend on what you're going to be doing for the future of your game. For example, my TCG Match Powers, I want to sell it and I want to get it onto like a card game simulator website called Untap. So because of that, I want to make my cards look nice, and I want to make sure that they're really easy to read and understand. And some of these, there's some methods that are better than others for this. But anyway, so let's just begin. The first one, which probably goes to everyone's mind, just making them completely by hand, and that's it. Just super basic, just make them by hands. With your own grubby sausage fingers. And then the next one would just be completely making them digitally, like drawing them digitally, doing the stats digitally and everything. And then the third one would be actually using both of the methods into one, and that would be drawing the art, or whatever you want. I suggest the art. Drawing the art as like a, by hand, and then uploading this to the computer by like taking pictures, and I actually did this for this one. This isn't completely digital. And then putting the digital stats over the white spots so it actually looks something like this. So those are 3 methods. I actually did only 2 of them. I used to do this, and then I decided to change to well, actually this. I decided to change to this. But I suggest if you want to sell your TCG on a very well-known website, the Game Crafter, for this for anyone in the homemade TCG community, I suggest, this is just my opinion, I suggest either one of fully digital or half of like both, just because the cards, like, you know, they just look nice and they're very easy to read, but it also kind of depends on your game. If your game involves like a lot of words, like just for example, there's a lot of words on this card, and especially if they're pretty small too, you may want to make the card have digital stats so it's much more easy to read, because maybe your handwriting is not the best. I mean, but mine, there's not much words at all, so I could have went for either of them. So like if your cards don't have much words or anything on them at all, you can go really for any of them, as long as your handwriting is neat. And that's pretty much the 3 methods I think are pretty good. There's probably more out there, but these are just the 3 that I know of. Yeah, I like them. Now, what I just talked about actually is pretty darn important, because it also may completely affect your whole entire game depending on how you make them. Because I used to make them by completely hand. I used to make them all by hand and stuff. But I changed to just doing the arts and then putting the stats digital. And because of this, this is much more easier to make than this, because I only have to do the art. I don't have to do any of this other stuff. And because of that, I technically did more work than I was supposed to do. So if you're going to do, like, whatever you're going to do, make sure you just stick to that. Unless you're like me and you make them completely by hand and you change to the digital stats, you can do that. Just know that you probably wasted a lot of time doing all like that. But if you're making your cards like completely digital, but you want to change them to hand, you're not going to be able to do that. So, you know, just make sure that you know what you're doing when you're making them. Okay, so once you have the rules of your game done, you know, you test it, make sure it works fine, and you have your cards, and you know what you're doing for your cards. You just gotta like finish making them and stuff. So then you're pretty much done. I mean, that's pretty much it to the TCG, right? There's not much. I suggest, though, because I didn't really talk about this yet, sets. I suggest doing sets if you want to get into your TCG, especially if you're going to be uploading it to like the Game Crafter or Untap. I suggest doing sets. You don't need sets, but basically what a set is like it's like each expansion that comes out over time that adds new cards to the game. And like, for example, my TCG, I have 65 creature cards and 15 spell cards in each set. So set 1, that's what's going to have. And right now, I'm kind of working on set 2. I'm just like finishing up set 1. But once I'm working on set 2, I'm going to be adding 65 new creatures and 15 new spell cards. That's going to add more to the game. And that's pretty much what a set is. I suggest doing sets. Sets are pretty good. If you don't want to do sets, then you can just keep on making cards and just keep on adding them in. Although that messes a lot if you're going to be selling your cards. So if you want to sell them, do sets. If you're just doing them like on Untap, like uploading them to the website so people can just play it or whatever, then you don't need sets. You can just do like whatever you want. So now I'm just gonna tell like a little story that I had with my TCG that may help some of you guys or something. But basically one thing that like really hurt me with my TCG is that I went way too quick. I should have slowed down, but I didn't. I went way too fast, and basically what I'm telling you is just make sure everything is working out fine, and if you're getting stressed out or whatever, just keep on going. You know, this probably doesn't affect many other people, but I know I got stressed out over it because I had so many restrictions, because like I should have finished my rules in the beginning. This is the biggest problem. You want to make sure that your rules are done. That's the first thing that has to be done, is the rules and the concept. That's the first thing that needs to be done Absolutely. I don't care who you talk to. I don't even care if I'm wrong, because I'm not. It's gotta be the first thing that's done. You can't make a whole entire ton of cards, then start making the rules. That's just not the best idea at all. But you know what I'm saying? You gotta make sure the rules are done. I didn't have that, and that's why it was so hard for me. Because I didn't have the rules done, so now I'm making rules for these cards. And it's sort of hard to do that. It's not impossible. It's, I did it. But what I'm saying? Like, this is the card right here. I need to make rules for a card with these things. And I mean, that doesn't really seem too hard, and it's not. But when you have a lot of restrictions, like, oh, I want to keep this, I don't want to change this, I can get rid of this if I replace it with something. Maybe I can add something to these cards, but actually no. I didn't want to add anything to these cards. That's what I decided. And you know what I mean? Like, you probably get what I'm saying. And it's just, it gets kind of hard. Because when you have to make rules for the cards, it gets hard. Because then, when I thought of adding stuff to the rules, I was like, wait. I would have to add something to the cards then. And it's already too late, so I can't do that. So that idea is just thrown out of the box. So I can't use that idea anymore. And that's what kind of sucks. So just make sure your rules are finished first, or else you're probably going to be running into some big problems, like the problems I ran into. But I think that's really it. That's going to do it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe to see more. Comment if it helped you. If it didn't, that's okay. Hopefully, I'm just hoping this helps someone. But that's pretty much it. Make sure that you know what you're doing. You're taking it, you don't have to take it too seriously. You can joke around with it and everything. But make sure you just get your rules done first, because that's the biggest thing. And make sure your concept is unique. That's also the big thing, too.